So, you woke up one morning and you decide that you want to become a game developer. So, let's get started. You go to Google and type how to become not a millionaire, because you're not going to be a millionaire, how to become a game developer. Let's see. Obtain bachelor degree. Yes, okay, you go to university, you study for 4 years and you obtain the degree. Brush up your math and physics skills. Okay, expand your software engineering skills. Develop storytelling skills. Build a game developer portfolio. Okay, we're starting from here. So, how to build a game? How to build a game? This is what you do naturally. Study game design. No, you're not gonna study game design. Start building. Okay, start building. But how to build a game? So you look at some videos and you decide that you're going to use Unreal Engine. Now that you have decided to use the superior engine, you need to learn how to use it. So let's go. How to learn Unreal Engine. Get good. Okay, that's okay. How to get good in Unreal Engine 5. Get good in Unreal Engine 5? A full course? That's 1 trillion views. That must be a good video. Let's watch that. So now that you know which engine to use and which video to watch, you need to get Unreal Engine, and you're gonna get Unreal Engine 5. So go to unrealengine.com, go to download the engine, and when you have it downloaded, you will have this launcher here. You download the game by clicking this plus sign and you have the game. Now after you have the game, you launch, or rather it's not a game, it's an engine. Be very specific with the names of things. So now that you have everything, you need to launch your engine. So click launch and it will load. Now that it's loaded, you want to create games, of course, so pick the games, obviously. Okay, what are these mods? I want to create, what game do you want to create first? Do you know? Well, it doesn't matter, let's pick the first one. And then you pick your project location, and you don't need to know anything about this. Blueprints, what's C++, you don't know anything about this, you leave it to blueprints. Now you have starter content. With starter content, you want content. The more content you have, the better, so you add that. Ray tracing was that, just added. And maximum quality, of course, you don't need anything else, just maximum everything. Desktop, you're not creating mobile. Desktop. Now you name your project Get Good, because you want to get good. And you click create, and you will wait for eternity for your engine to compile everything. And let the waiting begin now. So after you have waited at least 2 eternities, you will have this engine opened, and you notice that here in the right corner you're having some preparing shaders, and that will make your PC pretty slow unless you are son of the Nvidia or Intel family owner, so you have some godlike computer. But if you are like the rest mortals like us, you're probably gonna have a decent computer and you're gonna be very slowed by this preparing shaders. So while your computer is slow as a turtle, let's get familiar with all this in front of you. So this big screen here, if you press your right mouse button on it and move your mouse, press and hold the button of course, and move your mouse, you can rotate and see that you have sky and level and objects in the level and so on. So if you do it like the rotation mode and then you press the moving keys like W, S, A, D, you can actually move around the level and you can explore that what Unreal developers have built for you. So this is a default layout for the first person mode that we choose in the beginning. You remember the modes. And now if you release the button, you can actually press both left and right mouse button and hold them at the same time, and you can pan around the level. And while you have pressed both of them and moved a bit, now if you release your left mouse button but hold the right mouse button, if you release your right mouse button but hold the left mouse button, you will be able to move with your mouse around the level. You see, move and rotate. Some people prefer this way of moving, so you can just always have your left mouse button pressed, and when you need to move forward, and you just use your left mouse button, and if you need to go up and down, you can, or left and right like that, you can also press and hold the right mouse button. So remember, if you just press your mouse button, you go forward and backwards and rotate, and if you press them both, you pan and so on. So this is just choose your way of moving. This is how you navigate the level, and of course with the zoom, the scroll button, you zoom. So now that we have, now that we can navigate throughout our level, let's look at some of the menus, because there are a lot of stuff here, and you may feel overwhelmed if you have not seen any engine at all, or if you have lived under a rock and you have never used any software in your entire life. You will be extremely confused. However, I'm here, so, and you're watching this video, so let's get familiar with everything. We have the standard menus up there in the left corner, like File, you can save and open levels and so on. Edit, pretty standard. You have, these are actually important, the configuration, editor preference, project settings and plugins. You can export this, but for now just know that we will use this for different things. You definitely need the project settings and plugins when you want to enable some plugins, so just have it in the back of your head. And in the window you have a lot of stuff here. So here you can do the cinematics, you can add some sequence and stuff, and viewports, word partition. These are all things that we will go through later when we actually need them, but just get familiar with it and know that this can be useful in some situations. And then you have tools. Again, you're not going to use anything from here for right now. build. This is when you build lighting and levels. If you don't know what building is, you don't need to know right now. Select, this is just selecting actors and stuff. Actors, here you can actually do some interesting stuff like transforming an actor. So if you select actor, by the way, is any object in the scene. So if you select this actor here, this cube, and go to actors, and you can transform it like mirror X, and you see it mirrored in the x-axis, and the x-axis is these arrows here. You see when you select an object, you get these arrows, and the x-axis in Unreal is this red one. So it's X, Y, and Z is the blue one, up and down. So just so you know, let's get it like in its original position. And you can do snapping from here, pivot, you can control the pivot. And again, these actually arrows here, this dot is actually the pivot, so remember that. And the help, you can get some help from some resources that Unreal Engine has. Again, this is your map here, first person map. And if you change your map name, it will change here. You can save your level from here, and this menu, select mode, is you have different modes in Unreal Engine. So currently we're in select mode, so we can select different objects in our level, different actors. However, if we change this, for example, to landscape, it will take a bit of time to load. So now you see you have this grid in our world, and this is our landscape before we generate it. So now if I try to select any object, you're not going to be able to select anything because you're in the landscape mode. And if you select other modes, here you can do different things. Just know that you have these modes for now, and we're going to select the select mode, of course. And this is a quickly add to the project icon. This is the icon that you use to actually add different objects like shapes. You can add a cube if you want, so you can drag and drop it. And here you have this cube. I spawned this cube into our world, and you can do other stuff as well. So play around with this, and you can understand what you can do with these things. But this is the menu that we use to add some things into our level. And I will come back to this later when we explore it in a bit more detail. So let's move on to this menu here, which is the blueprint menu. And if we open the level blueprint, but what are blueprints? So if you have never used Unreal before, you're probably wondering, blueprint, wow, what is this? Blueprints, are we going to build a house or something? What is this? So if you open your level blueprint, you will get this, and you are gonna have another menu that you need to get familiar with. But don't worry, I'm here for you. And yeah, this is you can navigate in this blueprint menu, I guess, or editor. With the right mouse button, you can pan, and you can zoom with the scroll. This is basically Unreal solution for visual programming. So what can we do here? If you right-click, you get this menu, and for example, we can add something to it. You can choose anything, for example, in transformation, anything, it doesn't matter. So if you spawn this node, this is actually a function. It's called node in the blueprint editor, but this is a function. So this thing has some functionality in it. And it says find the average location centered of an array of actors. So if you get a few actors, and if you remember, all these are actors here. So if you get a few actors and put them here, this output here, it will have their average location. So it's pretty simple function, but these nodes, all of them has some functionality, and you create some system or some functionality you want using all these nodes. If you right click, you can use all these nodes from here to actually create some functionality you desire. So this is, instead of writing a code, of line of code, you actually have this line of code, so you arrange these things in order and create some functionality. So now that we have some basic understanding of blueprints, which is very little so far, but I think this is enough for beginner. Let's move to the next one, which is the sequence. So with this menu here, you can add sequence and all this stuff. And sequence is basically a cinematic. You can create a cinematic. If you played any game, you know they have cinematics, and this is how you actually create cinematics in Unreal Engine. And here, oops, sorry. And here, this button is obviously play. So let's press it and see what happens. And here we have it. We have a game. So if I pick this weapon and I show, this is so loud. This is so loud. You need to reduce your sound of the game for sure. But now you have a game, and you're happy. You're done. You have your game. Now you can publish it and become a millionaire. Yeah, sure. Okay, let's escape this. And the next thing we're going to do is explore this menu here. You don't need to be too you don't need to worry about these platforms. You are not going to use it anytime soon, but this is basically how you export your project into different platforms. Pretty simple. So we have this menu here with so many stuff in the right corner. So if you go to this line of the menu and you see you have this your mouse cursor change, and if you click, now you can extend it a bit, and you have this outliner. So what is the outliner? It's very simple. All these objects here in the level are actually listed in the outliner. You can notice here, this is highlighted because I have selected this cube here, and if I select another one, you have another highlighted. So this outliner is basically a list of all your actors that are inside your level. And if you select any of them, you will notice that this menu here, this detail menu, holds another set of settings and things, and it kind of changes when you select different objects. So this details menu here is basically your settings of different objects. So for example, let's say I like this blue cube here and I select it, and you have some options here to modify the cube, and this is the location, the first one. So I can change the location to something like this, and you see our cube moves inside our level. And you can do the same for rotation. I can do 35 here, and you see, let me zoom so we can actually see our cube changes. The same with scale. Well, I made it too small. Let's make it big, for example, in this axis. You see, now our cube is long. And here in the static mesh, you can actually change the cube, but there are a lot of settings, and most of them you're not going to use them. It's very good to get familiar with different settings, but so far you don't need it for now. If you want, get familiar with it, but you're probably not going to understand a lot of them. It will come naturally when you work with your projects. So here we have the world settings, and this is our actual settings on the whole world. If you couldn't tell from the name, so yes, these details are the settings of your objects, and the world settings are the settings of the whole world. Again, you're not gonna mess too much with this, so you don't need to understand it for now. But for example, here you have the game mode, and the game mode is basically, you know how we play the game, and we have first person. So if you had a blueprint that has a third person functionality, you will probably need to change this game mode to that. But for now, don't stress it too much. It's not that important so far. The levels, this you may actually not have it loaded. So if you don't have it, it's okay. You don't need it for now. But I disable it, and you can enable it by going to Window. As I said, this is going to be useful. So here you can actually enable this menu, and you can enable different menus as well. But for now, yeah, just know that you can do it from here, and you can play around and so forth. So now that we know this part of our engine here, the right part, we have a content browser here, or rather a content drawer. So in Unreal 5, they actually changed something that makes things very user unfriendly for new people, but the engine is so popular, they probably assume a lot of people already have seen Unreal 4, but in Unreal 5 you have this content drawer, and it's actually not displayed right now. So if we click on it, you open your content drawer, and this is actually where you hold all your files. While this outliner lists all the objects inside your level, this content drawer lists all your files inside your project. And what I mean is, if you want to have a new model inside your game, you need to put it here in the content drawer. After you export it from 3ds Max or Blender, you need to put it here in a folder. And if you click with the right mouse button here in the empty space, you get this menu from which you can, for example, create a new folder and call it git good. And if you enter this folder, you can create different things like blueprint class. You can create blueprints. So what we explored earlier was level blueprint, which has functionality of the level. However, you can have blueprints, different blueprints. If you click on blueprint class, as you see, you have different blueprints for different blueprints types for different things. For example, you have actor blueprints, so you can create some actor blueprints, so you can put it in the level. You have pawn, and this is pretty much explained here, but you can read it. But again, actor, you can let me just show you. If you create an actor, and if you open this actor blueprint, and here in this component menu, you can add, for example, a cube, and now you have a cube. And then compile. You need to compile so your blueprint actually works. Let's save it, minimize, and now if I get to my content drawer and just put it in the level, now you have a box that is a blueprint, and we can actually add some functionality to this box, but I will show you that later. So this it's kind of annoying for me, the content drawer. I never work like that. Some people may prefer it, but if you're always annoyed by, if you click on the content drawer and click anywhere in your scene, it minimized. So if you want it to be forever docked in your UI, you can just dock in layout. So if you press this, now you have it always. No matter where you click or whatever you do, you always have it. And now it even doesn't cover this portion here. So you can see your settings of your actors as well. So you can actually make it a bit smaller or bigger. Small or big, I don't know, however you like it. So now if you go to these folders, you can navigate your folders and you have different stuff. So let's explore what we have in these folders. If you remember in the beginning, there was this option when you were creating your project, you had this option called starter content. And here we have a folder that says starter content. So what happens if we click it, you have some more folders, and you may be a bit confused, but most of them are pretty self-explanatory. You have blueprints, and actually if we click to blueprint and select, for example, let's say this ceiling light blueprint, and as you see, as I said before, you have these nodes, right? You have these nodes and they have some functionality. And in this case, it just this node here is set intensity and the target is point light. So if you go to this viewport here, you will see that we have some objects and we have a point light here, right? And this is a light. And this light actually has intensity. So intensity is here in this menu here. You can see the settings in the right part. And if you select a different objects, you will see a different settings. But in this point light, we have this intensity setting. And if you go to the construction script, you will see that we are changing this intensity. So here, this is a float variable, and this is just a number. So here, this node basically what it does is you get the point light, as you remember, and to summon this node, you see this small node here, you can summon it by getting this actor here and drag and drop it here, and you can set, for example, set intensity, and now you can set its intensity. And you can obviously do it like here, you can put some number, or you can create a variable by extending this, like left click and drag, and promote a variable. And now you have, this variable you can name it, like int for example, and if you compile, you can set it to some number you like. So this is very basic for blueprints, and again I will get more into it later. However, with this you have a very good overview, I think. I'm very humble about, you have a very good overview about Unreal interface, but there's a few things that we kinda missed, so let's get to them. So on your viewport here, the big screen that you have in the middle, you have some menus, and if you click on these three lines here, you have some options. Again, these are mostly options of this viewport. So you can show your FPS, and you see my computer is not very good. I probably need some sponsorship from some Intel or Nvidia, because oh my god, this FPS is very bad. Of course, I'm preparing shaders, so it does decrease my FPS a lot. And if you select it again, you can disable it, and you have field of view. Look what you can do here. Don't get scared, just type 90 again, and this screen percentages, it's very low for some reason. This should be 100. This is basically you can upscale or downscale your window here. So if I type 1, I guess I cannot type 1. Let's say, what is the minimum? 30. And you have I don't know if you can see it, but if we go to immersive mode or press F11, you maximize the view. You see it's, I don't know if you can notice, but it's it's pixelated, because the quality we downscaled this to 30%, and if we do 150 we will upscale it by 50%, and my engine will probably crash, and my PC as well, because this was not very smart of me. So my PC almost exploded in 1,000 pieces because I decided to upscale to 150% while rendering shaders, like baking shaders or whatever, compiling shaders, and also on 4K resolution. That wasn't the smartest move I could have done, in my opinion, but yeah. So you have these menus here. You can even create a screenshot. You can screenshot, capture it, and when you capture this, yeah, if you capture this, you have it in a folder, and I will show you later where the folder is and so on. But for now, let's move to the other one, which is perspective, and this is basically the view, how you want to view your scene. Currently we have perspective view, but we can, for example, view the scene from top, and this is how it looks. So if you're into architecture and you like drawings, architectural drawings, here you would have a lot of fun. It's very fun, yeah, this view is very fun. But yeah, it can be very useful sometimes, but let's get back to some interesting stuff. You have your lighting modes, and again you have a lot of options here. You can have unlit, so basically this is all the colors in your scene without any lighting. And you have other stuff, wireframe, it looks very interesting. You cannot see basically anything, it takes some time to adjust, but yeah, very useful, very useful. Now, next thing is show, and here you actually have a lot of options again, but let's not get into this for now, you don't need it right now. And here in the right part of our viewport are actually options for moving our objects. For example, now I am in select and translate objects, so I can select and I can translate them, basically move them. I don't know why they use this fancy word translate instead of move, but anyway, if I pick this, which is shortcut Q, you can only select, you don't see a pivot point, you don't see anything, you cannot move the objects. And if you select this, you can rotate your object. And again, you probably guessed it, but this is for scaling. Ctrl Z to return back to normal. And the next one is your gizmo. I'm not gonna explain this right now, you're not gonna need it right now. Control how objects snap to surfaces. Again, you can control your snapping, and these are just snapping objects. So if you select and press W, so we can go to the move tool, or rather translate tool, you can actually snap your objects. Currently it snaps by 10 units. So what happens if I snap it by 100 units? And it snaps pretty much visible, it's very visible, and 500 it's like even more. So if you want some snapping, this is how you can do it, and it's the same for rotation and so on. This is counter speed here, and if you put it to 8 and try to move, as you see, it's a bit fast, so you can control the speed of your camera movement with this little option here. And this one here actually can divide your screen by 4, so you can have different viewports, and you can assign different views from here on each of every viewport you have. So let's get back to the normal one. And now our shaders are done. Probably yours as well, maybe not, who knows. It doesn't matter, you wait for them to be done and you will be ready to actually explore more of Unreal Engine 5, and let's get to creating some games. Now that you are the ultimate master of Unreal Engine UI, you are ready to actually learn how to create a game. So the first step to create a game is to choose a game engine, and we have already chosen our engine, and that's Unreal Engine. So we have that step covered already. So next thing to create a game, actually there are two things. First, you need the art part of your game, and the second one is the technical part. So let me explain what I mean by all this. Let's start with the art part. What you need to create a game. So first you need a concept art. So you either draw your concept art yourself if you are some epic godlike painter or 2D artist. You can have your concept art, you can create it yourself, but for the peasants like me who cannot draw, we actually either need someone to draw it for us, or we can check some reference. So imagine you actually don't have a concept art and you have some ideas. So for example, you go to Pinterest, of course, and you type the most epic Japanese environment. And now you have some really interesting concept art about a Japanese environment. You can get your ideas like this, and you can create your concept art sheet or reference sheet. And to create a very good reference sheet, you will need a certain program that will make your life a bit easier. And of course, I'm talking about PureRef. If you don't know about PureRef, you definitely need to download this program. You can put anything in here and you can create your concept art list, or rather concept art sheet, reference sheet, and whatever. This is an example of a reference sheet that I have for a project that I'm creating, and of course, because I'm a total weeaboo, it's about Japan and Japanese shrines, because I like shrines, and that's all I do basically my whole career for my personal project. Yeah, so here I have in this section, I have some technical constructions, and here I have some torii gates, and again technical constructions. This is the size and how to the proportions and so on, as you can see. So I divide them by different things. So technical, I have torii gates, I have size. Also here I have some inspiration, like overall the shape of the buildings and so on. And of course, if I'm going to do interior, I do it like I have some reference for what it may look inside and what they use for the inside. But this is actually houses, and it's probably not gonna work. But I can use it. So yeah, this is a very basic reference sheet, and you can resize it, you can move the window and so on, you can resize, let me close this one. You can create like anything you want with this window. So that's why PureRef is a very useful program, and I totally recommend you to get it. So you have your reference, or you have your concept art, and now you're actually ready to create your models. So this is the modeling part. You use programs like 3ds Max, Blender, or Houdini, and model your assets. After that, you're gonna texture them and create materials inside Unreal Engine or any engine you decide. And for the texturing part, you can use Substance Painter, that's what I use. You can texture them in Photoshop if you want, or any other texturing software that you can find, but I recommend Substance Painter. The next part is black. You have your you have everything like your models, but your scene looks exactly like this. Very black, nothing. You see absolutely nothing, because the next part is lighting. You actually need to light your scene, so remember that you need lights or you won't see anything. And after you have lighting, you have some environment. You decide my game doesn't really look very alive, so you decide to do some characters, like create your character, rig your character, and animate your character. For example, this cat. You animate this cat, and you have a cat in your game. You play the game, and you realize there's no pause menu or any menu, or you cannot even exit your game. The only way to do it is to press escape, or if you actually play it in Unreal in the game mode, you will actually need to Alt and F4. So you need some UI. So you decide to create your UI, and that's very good. You have some UI, basic UI, and your game starting to look pretty good. But then you realize your game has models and so on, but there's no reason, to play it. So you actually create your game design, how the game will be played, what you're going to do in your game, and then you probably need some music or sound effects. So you either create your music yourself, or you download free music or pay for music and so on, and you create a game. So this is basically the art part, and maybe there are more stuff to it, but this is the basic things that you are going to need. And next we have the technical part, and in this part is pretty simple for you guys, because you have in Unreal either you do blueprints or you do programming. Also, there's the other aspects of technical knowledge about the engine itself and solving technical problems, which is actually the job of a technical art position, and blueprints, doing blueprints. So, and yeah, you have two parts basically. Either you do blueprints, you create your game with blueprints, or programming, or you actually use both. In this video, I'm not going to show you any programming at all, because I don't enjoy programming myself. I'm more of a visual guy, so I'm going to show you how blueprints work in Unreal 5. So this is my epic presentation about how to create a game. And next I'm going to start showing you how to actually do some of these things, and how to use Unreal Engine to actually create something. So yeah, let's get into that. Now that you know all the necessary steps to create your game, you start to actually do something with your knowledge, because knowledge is not power, application of knowledge is power. So now you need to do something, and the first step is concept art, or rather reference. Go find your reference in Pinterest or whatever website you wanna use, it doesn't matter. Find your reference, create your reference sheet in PureRef or any other program, and now I am trusting you. I'm gonna stop for a second, pause the video, and go gather your reference. Have you gathered your reference? Have you created your reference sheet? If you haven't, go do it. If you have, ignore what I just said, and let's move to the next step, which is modeling. So you go into a software like you get a free software like Blender, and now you model some stuff, but you realize that you cannot model even if your life dependent on it. So you cannot create quality models. That sucks. You need a lot of practice to actually do that. And you either stop this video, go practice for 35 years, become a master at modeling, and come back. Or you have another alternative, and that is to use free models or hire someone to do your modeling. But if you're doing a game just to practice, you can get some free models. So go to Google and type free 3D models. 27 best websites to download free 3D models. I mean, you have 27. So pick one, explore, go, see what's going on, get some free models. Here you can have a hot air balloon. It's very useful. So get your free models from here, or another way to get some free models is actually into the Epic Games launcher. So if you open your Epic Games launcher and go to Marketplace. So now you're gonna ask, Marketplace, I don't wanna buy, I'm not gonna spend money on this. Well, you see here we have this free section. So you go to free and pick Epic Games content. And here you have all this is free, but it's only for studying purposes. So if you're going to sell your game, all this stuff, you cannot use it. But for a beginning, for practicing and for learning, it's very useful to download a lot of these things and test it out. Like you have a whole city here, you have crowds, you have people, you have a lot of stuff, and you have look how many pages, it's insane how much free content you have here, just here. And then you actually have Megascans. So if you have Unreal Engine and you're using Unreal Engine, all the Megascans will be free for you. Also, another way to access the Megascans, you can actually do it inside your engine. So here, as you open your project, which is the GitGood project, you can see the name here, GitGood. And now if you go to quick out to the project, you have a Quixel bridge, and you can actually access the Unreal Marketplace from here as well. But you have Quixel bridge, and if you open this, you notice if this decides to open. Oh, it opened on my other monitor. Perfect. So here, as you see, everything that you see here is actually free. You have materials, you have assets, you have plants, everything. These are scanned, quality scanned assets. So you have very nice assets, and you can use them. You can use them in your project, and you can practice by creating a level with it. Another section, like in the launcher, is free for the month. So every month, if you didn't know, you have free packs in Unreal. So here, this thing actually costs, well, this is in Bulgarian leva, which in USD is probably $150 or $170. This whole pack is that much, and this is like 200 and something dollars. So these packs are expensive, and for this month you can actually get it for free. So you can get every single pack, even if you don't need it. Like if you don't need it right now, you may need it in the future. So you can just add it to your cart, and here you can just check out. And you see, this is like 700 USD, I think 600 and something USD in packs, and it's free. So you get it. This month you have these packs, and another month you probably gonna have another packs. So don't miss out on this. Make sure to actually check every month so you can get the free packs. It's very useful. And you have the permanently free collection. Again, look at this. This just looks amazing. And this is absolutely free if it decides to load. So that was absolutely free. You can get it for free. For some reason it doesn't want to load. My internet is pretty bad today. And then you have, yeah, it doesn't want to load. Anyway, you have the next thing is marketplace collection. Here you have all our free stuff as well. So mind that some of them actually are not supported, like don't support like Unreal 5. So yeah, make sure that where was it? Make sure you actually your pack, if you go into the pack, yeah, for some reason, yeah, it doesn't want to load. But yeah, if you go into a pack, you will see if it supports like your Unreal version. And if it doesn't, actually, if you don't have a version that this pack supports, it will pop an error. It will pop, and it will ask you if you really want to buy it, even if you don't have. So yeah, you have this on sales as well if you want to spend money, but not too much. But yeah, for some reason, yeah, my marketplace is not loading. And now that you have the means to get some free assets, you can start creating your game. But this is for the 3D assets and creation. How to make materials? Again, you can get materials from the Quicksilver bridge, which is the scanned materials. You can get materials, and your models will come textured with materials. The next part is lighting. If you have a scene, currently I have not created a scene, but this is the default scene. And you see we, by default, is actually lit. We have lighting in the scene. So if you go to your outliner, and you will notice we have these folders. So if we just get to the lighting folder, here you're gonna notice that we have this directional light, and if I disable it, everything becomes basically dark. And if I enable it, we have the whole scene lit. So this scene is actually lit by directional light, which is the sun here, and it's lit by skylight. So what is the difference between directional and skylight? Well, the directional light is self-explanatory. You have a light that leads your scene in a directional manner. So you see we have shadows because our light has an angle. So if I change the angle of our light, to do that, you just need to select your light. You go to E, press E for rotation mode, and or just just press C for rotation mode, and you rotate your light. And as you see, as you rotate, let me show you. As you rotate your light and disable the snapping, so we can actually rotate smoothly, you see your sun is actually moving and your light is moving with it. So this is how you can actually change the lighting, the directional lighting in the scene. So then we have the skylighting, and this is a light that fills everything. It has no direction, and if I put this to 0, you see our shadows become very dark because there is no light that lights here in the shadows. And if we put this back to 1, now everything in the scene is a bit lighter. And this is just a fill light that fills everything in the scene. The whole scene, as you notice, the whole scene becomes darker, even the highlighted parts from our sun. So it's not just the shadows. this is what the skylight, basically the light that comes from the sky. Again, very self-explanatory. In this folder, most people in the lighting folder also put the exponential fog, which if you disable it, you'll see your scene becomes a lot more ugly, and this makes the scene so much better. This is just fog that's and this fog can actually be volumetric fog. So if you scroll down in your details panel here, if you scroll down and you find the volumetric fog while you have selected the exponential height fog, and to enable it, you will see your scene changes a bit. So now we have volumetric fog, which is everywhere. And if we, for example, let's go here to fog density, copy this value so we can just paste it later and put it to 1, you see what happens. And if I disable the volumetric fog right now, you see you have such a big difference with or without. Then you obviously have some settings for the fog, but it doesn't matter that much. So let's paste back the value that we copied for the fog intensity. We don't need to have it like so strong. So now we have some volumetric fog, and then you have the post-process volume. I actually have a tutorial on some post-process materials and the volume itself, so you can check it out. The sky and atmosphere, it's very self-explanatory. Before, if you have used the version of the engine before, before 5, like 4.26 for example, or I don't remember when it was introduced, the sky atmosphere, but the sky atmosphere emulates like a real world planet atmosphere. So if I disable this, you see everything is extremely like ugly. And yeah, it's like one click solution. You just have your sky and atmosphere and everything becomes pretty nice. I already explained that, and the sky sphere, if you disable it, nothing will happen to you, don't need it. Now volumetric clouds. So this is again self-explanatory. I have used for volumetric clouds how you can make them better, so you can watch that. So this is what you have in the lighting folder, and this is a very basic lighting. But let's say you actually don't have like open scene like this one. So if you remember here in the Epic game content in the free section, you see this project here, which is a broadcast sample. So go ahead and download that. Actually get it like in your project, and after you have gotten it, you have it here in your vault if you go to library. So if you scroll down, I have quite a few. I just need to find this particular one, which is here. So now I can actually create a project. So create a project with this, so we can examine some lighting situation, and you can examine the project as well and just see different things in it. It's very helpful to actually download these projects, create a project, go through the project and see what they have done. It's very educational, so do that. Let's do that, and I will meet you after you have this project opened. So I finally opened my project, and this took so long to compile and everything, and you probably hate me for making you download and do this project as well. But if you haven't done it, you can just watch and learn just by watching. Okay, so let's get into the project. Now here we're going to have a look at the lighting, and as you see, this level is interior, so we don't have that directional light. No matter what you do, even in the lighting folder, there you won't be finding any directional light because this is interior. And this scene is very good to explore the different lighting options in Unreal. So let's first, before we have a look at all the lighting actors, let's go to quickly add to the project. And if you go to lights, you're going to see all these lights. So let's get like point light, and as you see, this point light is omnidirectional light, which means basically it is a sphere, and inside this sphere we have lighting in all direction. I think it's 6 different direction. This light is basically 6 lights pointing in different direction. And if we go to lights and go to spotlight, this is a spotlight. So basically the point light is I think it's 6 spotlights rotated in all directions, so it covers like a sphere, all 360 directions. And here in this one, in the point light, we have things like radius and all that thing. If we go to intensity, for example, now you see it's a lot more intense, and this is for the point light. And here we have stationary and static, movable. Static is basically when you bake lighting, and baking lighting is rendering all the lighting with the global illumination and GI. I mean, this is GI global illumination, which is the way that things like V-Ray in 3ds Max render things, and it gives you a lot more realistic lighting. But here in Unreal 5 we actually have a good solution for that. It's called Lumen. This project, I don't believe, is actually using Lumen. However, we just need to take a look at all the lighting options. So if we go to lights and go to rectangular light, this again should be pretty straightforward. It's light, but it's just rectangular. And as you see, if I rotate this light, for example, here, like this, 90 degree, this rectangle will emit light in this direction, and we have this part of the level lit. So as you see, around this car we have a few different lights. We have a spotlight, which is lighting this car in this direction, and we have rectangular light, which, as you see, you can actually manipulate the shape. So as you see here, if I actually change this value, the size will change, and you can change the height as well and make it like more diffuse lighting. And this, if I make it smaller, as you see, I don't know if you can see here, but this is basically the reflection of the light. And yeah, if I make it smaller, oops, the smaller the light, the sharper actually the shadows. So this is a way to actually lit your scene. If I hold out and move this light, I'm actually going to duplicate it. And if I, for example, rotate it and do this, like you see, now this car has very nice reflections here, and you can see it a lot better. And if I, of course, if I remove this light, we can see before and after. You see how the car top looks right now, and if I put 8, now a lot more shiny, and it looks, in my opinion, better with this light like this. And as you see, we have these point lights here. This is actually, I believe, if you press G, you're going to go into game mode, and now you don't see all the UI. And I think these guys here are obviously lighting up here. And let me press G again. So this is what we have in the scene. Most of the lights are these 3 types. One is the spotlight. Here we have these directional lights and the rectangular lights. These are probably all of the lights you are gonna use in your interior scene. Also, as you see, we don't have skylight or directional light because we don't have sun here. So we don't have sun for the directional light, and we do not have sky, so we don't need this to have a diffuse lighting. So let me show you. If I go here and add the skylight, and I increase the skylight, where is the intensity here, to 100, and I can make it like nothing will happen because we actually don't have we don't have a sky. So this is not going to work. And if I add like a directional light and I make it movable, nothing will happen because this is a closed like a closed area. As you see, if I do this, we see something, but this is kind of a bug because right now the sun, if I go outside this building, the sun is actually below the ground and it's lighting from below. And I think here in this building we have leaking somewhere. So the lighting is actually leaking, which is, I mean, this won't happen in a real scenario, so you don't need to worry about it. But as you see, if we have a window, I think somewhere, but the lighting is actually getting inside. However, in this area, in this level, we don't need this directional light because this is an interior scene and we literally don't need it. So that's why we're using only these 3 types of lights, right? The rectangular light, the point light, and the spotlight. And of course you have settings in all of them, like the outer, the inner cone, and the source radius. So let me actually show you here. If I zoom in and increase the source radius, sorry, what's going on? You see, so the source radius is basically if you have a source from the light, for example, if it's the sun. This is just the size of the source. And as I said, the bigger the source, the softer the shadows. And I don't know if we can see it here. Probably not because it's very lit. And the smaller the source, the harder the shadows. And you can remember that it can be very useful when you are lighting your scene. And let's delete all this. Okay, what happened? Here I am. Again, this is the car. You can explore more of it, but this is very basic introduction to lighting your scene. There's a lot more to it, and later I'm actually going to go into Lumen, and we can see what Lumen is and so on. But for now, this is a basic introduction to lighting. Now that we have the lighting out of our heads and we know the basics, I want to actually go through some basic materials. I do have a video about materials, and there I go more in depth, but I want into this to have into this introduction video everything, so you can actually have at least a basic understanding even after watching this video, and then you can go more into materials if you want by watching my previous video. So here is actually the scene that I used from my previous video, and to create a material, all you need to go to do is go somewhere in your content browser, create a folder or Git, and just right click here in this empty area and go to material, and we name materials with M for material, and we can have the name, for example, random material. And now if we double click or press enter, come on, you will open the material. And as you see, we have, actually I have a lot of materials open, so spoiler alert, yeah, you can do crazy stuff like that. But let's open this default material, and let's go really fast through all the what you see on the screen. Here, of course, it's the default menu, and this is the name of the material. We have save, browse. Actually, if you press this one, it will let me close all these tabs. For example, if you are somewhere else, let's say here, if you press browse, it will automatically find your material in your content browser. So this is very cool, and this you can use it with everything, not only in the materials. You have this browse almost in every menu. So we have some options here that we can toggle and so on, but they're not very relevant right now. The most relevant, I guess, it's the preview material, but I will explain this a bit later. So here in this window we have this sphere, and here you can actually preview your material, and you can switch to some other shape, and this shape here is actually your own mesh. So if you go to a content browser, and I don't know, let's go, I have a lot of stuff downloaded. This is from the free actually from the marketplace, from the free packs, and I can just go to, for example, this weapon here, and while I have selected it in my content browser, I can just click this icon and now wait for it to load. But after it loads, as you see, I can preview my material on this mesh here. And it's compiling shaders, so it's a bit slow, but this is the preview window, and here you have some options. Real time, if you want to preview your material in real time, you can see the FPS, and for some reason it's not showing my FPS. Okay, that's not that important. So this is your preview material, and in the details, if I select this node here, and creating materials is literally having nodes connected to other nodes, and everything connects to this. So we have the base color, this is obviously the color, and here we have metallic, which is whether the material is metallic or not. Specular, we actually don't use this anymore because you shouldn't touch this, it's not PBR. So what we are going to change most of the time is the base color, the metallic, the roughness, emissive color, opacity mask, normals, and for some also ambient occlusion maybe. all this stuff, that don't get overwhelmed. You don't need to understand everything here, but basically this is the base color. This is whether the object is metallic or not, the material. Roughness, let me actually show you what roughness do, because it's a lot easier to show it. If I press 3 and hold it, and then left mouse button, and I'm going to summon this node, and this is basically this is a color node. It's a vector tree with 3 values, but this thing actually generates a color. So if I select this node, and you see we have these details, the settings here, and I can change the color to something gray. And now because we have live real time, it will actually and I think we have a live preview material, and now it will update real time. So if I press 1, hold and press 1 and left mouse button, you spawn this node here, and this is just a number. This is a float number, and if you connect this to roughness, now it will become very reflective. Our sphere becomes very reflective, and this is basically what roughness do. Roughness is how the light bounces and how the light actually interacts with your object. And if I switch this to 1, now you will notice that we don't have any reflection. It's very rough. And if I do 0.5, it's somewhere in the middle, which you see we have this specular here. If we go 0.25, for example, now you should see a little bit more reflection here. So this is for roughness. Normal map is something that gives details. If you use a normal map, basically you have like illusion that you have some details, but I'm not going to go through all of this. I have a video for that. And if I select this node here, you see all the settings here. So just get familiar that with whole interface, and it's not very hard. And if I right click anywhere in here, you're going to see all these things. Again, don't get overwhelmed. A lot of this stuff you're not going to use right off the bat, but you may use some of them. And we have different menus, different things, and you can create a lot of stuff. For example, you can add, and add is a mathematical function. However, you can add anything. And I'm not going to go through all this. There's actually videos on YouTube that explain all these nodes, what they do, and yeah. So, for example, if I add this node here and I summon another one and make it like 0.1, now the result is obviously 0.35, and it's a bit more of so yeah, it can be mathematical. It is mathematical function, but you can actually add colors as well. So let me show you. Oops, sorry about that. If I add this color, copy and paste it, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V with another color, for example, let's say blue. Make it lighter, and if we add them together, you see the sphere becomes a bit more blue. And if I do red like this, it becomes a bit reddish because I'm adding white with red, and it's very pinkish reddish, but still white. And that's basically for the materials. If you want more details on it, I have a video, so you can check it out. After you have some environment, and of course you have lighting, and you have a level or whatever, you will probably probably need to have some character and animation. You can actually download some characters, of course, from the marketplace, free stuff. And if I play on this level, let's let it load, you're going to see that I have this character. And if you have seen the trailer for Unreal 5 and some showcases, you are probably very familiar with this character. And as you see, she has animations, and yeah, she can run, she can sprint, she can walk, and so on. Very low FPS for me for some reason, but yeah, I need a better computer, so please subscribe to my channel so I can actually start getting some money from this. Not that I care, but I'm not really that poor, but you see, more money is always better. So subscribe to my channel, and if you don't subscribe to my channel, nothing will really happen to you. So yeah. Anyway, you can actually download her from the marketplace. I think it's called Echo or something like that. You can download her, and you can play around and see her animations. However, if you want other custom animations, there's a very good website called Mixamo. If you haven't heard about Mixamo, it's a website where you can actually get free animations. So you see, it's mixamo.com, and here if you push on animations, you're going to see different animations. And if I, for example, you have this skeleton here, and if I click on this animation, it will load, and now it will play. And of course, you can download these animations. Yeah, you need to be signed. I'm not signed right now, but you can download these animations and you can upload them in Unreal. I think for Unreal there was a plugin or something that you can download the animations and convert them, but there are videos on YouTube about that. I just wanted you to know about this website, and it's very useful to use. And of course, you can always download some content from Epic if you want to play around and see more about animations. However, let me show you the Echo content. So here in Echo, we have a lot of stuff like audio, blueprints, and I'm going to get to blueprints later. So character effects, inputs, so many things. And for example, in characters, here you're going to see some files. And if I open, for example, this file, this is called animation blueprint, as you see, as my PC froze for some reason because it's loading. And when you load this, you have 1,000 opened different tabs here. So if we go to event graph, this is actually the graph with our events. There are a lot of stuff coming here, so you may actually feel very overwhelmed with all this stuff, but let's go through it. Again, you have this menu. As I said, you still have this browse, so you have it almost everywhere. And these are very standard, right? A very standard menu, you have it everywhere. Here is actually your tabs. So what are tabs? In the right here are the different graphs. So you have the event graph, you have the animation graph, and you have some functions. So if I open this function, it opens another tab. And by default, I think, was it me that opened it so many on this project, or by default, but you don't need so many. So let's have the event tab. And yeah, with every function, functions are basically the same in Blueprint as here. Like you have some functionality in them. And they're created because this is a lot easier. instead of having all these nodes, and all these nodes are just different logic, like different logic connected to each other to create some functionality, which is inside this function called setReference. So instead of actually having this in the event graph, for example, and having this functionality here, you actually create a function by just pressing this plus sign here. You can create a new function and you can actually paste it here, and to have it active you can just connect this node. So now you have this function, and if you go to your event graph where your events happen, and events are things that you can trigger in certain times if something happens with conditions and so on. So if we go to the event graph, the new function that we created, we can rename it. What do we want to rename it? Let's right click, go to rename, and rename it epic function. So now if I just drag and drop it here, you have this function, and if I decide to use it, I can just connect it where I want to use it. I know this may be confusing for you for now, but just get familiar that this is animation blueprint, and in this animation blueprint there is the logic of the locomotion, or how the character moves, and loading all the animations when you need to load them. For example, if you go to anim graph, and let's say we load this node here, which says locomotion. This node here is the logic how the locomotion works. So if we double click it, now you're going to see this maybe confusing at first, but if you look at it, it's you can probably guess what it's doing. So this is entry, this is just where it all starts, and this is the idle. So right now if you see, it's active, and as you see our character here in the preview, again this in most menu this is just the preview, and as you see it's just having the character is having the idle animation. And if I click here, you see we have this animation. This is just animation, a sequence player that plays this animation. So it's an idle animation. Let's get back. To get back, you can either click this, or let me get back in, or you can select any stage of your folder structure. And if I click here right now, like this. So we have the idle, and how do we go to a walking state? So this is the idle state. So how do we go to the walking state? We have a condition, and this here is the condition. And if I click it, we have a condition. This is a boolean. A boolean is a true or false statement, and we have here a functionality. So yeah, I'm not going to go into this, but know that you have a logical condition, and if it's met, which you can either do it from the event graph or do it from the character blueprint. Again, I'm not going to go into it because this is actually a pretty advanced thing. But if that condition is met, we're going to go into the walking state. And yeah, we can see that if we open this state, you have other stuff. So it's a bit complicated. You don't need to get too into it. But know that this is the animation blueprint, and it's responsible for your character, how it behaves, how what conditions needs to be met to go from one state to another. Like if you press the forward and shift, you're going to sprint, for example, and you need that condition, and if that's met, you can sprint, trigger the sprint animations. And here in this folder we have animations. So as you see, we have idle animation, as we saw, and it's nothing complicated here. If I choose another animation, you will notice that here we have these things, and they are called notifiers from notifies, like here. They're called notifiers, and in this area where the notifier area is, you can actually trigger functionality in certain time of the animation. So you see, this is I think some kind of animation, and we have play sound here. So at this point of time we will play a certain sound, and we have the same with this. And if you right click somewhere, you can add notifier, and you have some actual functionality that you can add. You can add, for example, a particle effect, so a particle effect can play here. So this is a very basic overview. I'm actually going to create a video dedicated to animations, so you can actually get a bit more familiar with animations and all that. So look forward to that. But for now, this is what you need to know. And you see, these are all green, but these are blue. You see here, you have blue. And this is the same animation. These two are the same animation, but this is actually an animation montage. And in the animation montage, you have a bit different settings, blendings here. But again, you have, you have here notifiers. You can add notifiers here as well. But these animation montages can be used in blueprints with certain nodes. So that's why they are connected. Not connected, but created, sorry. So to create one, you actually pick some animation, right click, go to create, and create animation montage. Again, I'm going to go through this in another video, which yeah, and yeah, this is basically a lot of very I mean, this is overview of the animation system. There are a lot of stuff for animation that you probably would like to learn if you want to make a game, and if you're interested in animation. I am actually really interested in animation because this is actually what gives your game life. You feel like when you have characters moving around, or even like though this is not animation like the moving trees and so on, it's still, I mean, it's not animation file, it's done in the material, it's still animation, so it makes your scene like alive. So learning animation and how to do certain things with animation is very important in my opinion. So yeah, this is the overview of animation. You learn how to create animations. Oh, did you? Did I show? To create animation, well, you usually import them. So you just import them here. But if you want to create for some reason something with animation, it's right click and you have this animation menu here where you can actually create a lot of stuff, and I'm going to actually go through a lot of this in my animation video. So yeah, I'm not going to go through it right now. And now you actually have a very basic understanding of how to do animations, or rather not do, but how to use animation in Unreal. So let's create some UI next. To create UI, all you need is to go to your folder and right click and go to user interface. That is what UI stands for. And create a widget blueprint. And now you're gonna have this menu here, and you're gonna choose user widget. This is something that you just need to choose. Let's name this, and let's name it, come on, let's name it UI menu. So UI is basically all the menus that you have in your game, all of the elements on your screen that shows your health and points and so on. Now that we have this widget blueprint, we can double click it, and I have 1,000 other stuff. Let me clean them up. And now when you open the widget, you're gonna see the screen. To navigate this viewport, all you need to do is right click and hold it and just drag it. And with the scroll mouse button, you can just go in and out. And now you're probably confused what is all this, like how do you create your UI. And here again you have this menu, very standard menu with compile, save, browse, and you can even play the game. But yeah, this is the standard menu. And here you have your UI elements. For example, you can add a border, button, and so on. But what we actually need right now is to, let me see where it was. Yeah, so go into panel here, expand the panel, and we need to add a canvas panel. So we need a canvas where we are going to place our UI elements. So when you place this canvas here, if you drag this one, you see different resolutions, so it will snap to these resolutions. So if your monitor is like HD and so on, it's good to actually choose the proper resolution. So let me actually choose 4K. I think that's my monitor. And now you actually can add some elements inside this canvas panel. So if we go up and if we want to add a button, just drag and drop it here, you'll see it goes under this canvas panel. And now it's as simple as that. Now we have a button. However, if I just compile, save, and if I decide to play the game, for example, let me check out this error. Yeah, so if we play the game, you see we don't actually see any button on the screen, and that is a problem. We actually need our UI to be shown on the screen. So if we go to the world settings, all we need to do is find our character mode, character pawn, but here we actually don't see it in the world settings. So the next thing, the next place we're gonna check is actually in the blueprints, in game mode, and you see this edit. My game mode actually is called Echo, but we can just go to the pawn and edit the pawn from here. And here you have the blueprint of your pawn. And now go to event graph. We need to find the gameplay, which is here. And next we need to actually add our UI to the screen. So from here, drag and type create. Sorry. My mistake. You need to type create widget, and from here we can actually place our widget. So if we select our widget in the content browser and just click this arrow here, now we are going to select this widget. That's all good, but if we compile, there is mistakes here. Cancelled. Let me fix this, and by fix I mean delete all that gave me the error. So let's save and go here. Like, yeah, you see our create widget node, and now we can play the game. Just we can play it from here. And as you see, still there's no huge button on our screen. And that's also a problem. We need our huge button. If you remember, this is, I will make it even bigger like this. So we don't have it. Next, we actually need to make it visible to our screen. To do that, we actually need to add it to the viewport. So go to get this return value here, this pin, drag it and type add to viewport. And for example, if you try to actually create this node like just by extending an output pin, like this is like execute pin, and try to type add to viewport, we can do it this way, but then we actually need to connect it. So it's better to just create it from here. And now let's compile this. And hopefully, if I press play, let's see, I have a giant button on my screen. So that's how you create UI. Pretty easy, right? And with this, you can actually have different things here. You can control the color, for example, make it a different color, color on positive background color. So you have different like options that you can use here. But we have our giant button. Let's make it red. Make this button red. And now I want to have functionality. When I press this button, I want something to happen, right? So remember, this is our blueprint here from for our character, for the pawn. And here we can actually create functions. And we can link these functions to our buttons here, but even more simpler than that, if I want to just create a cute, sorry, not cute, well, it may be a cute button, but if I want to create a quit button, it's pretty easy actually. So when you select your button, you can select it either from here or from the screen, and now you have this behavior here. So you can add different things. You see these flags here, this like bindings, and you can actually bind functionality on this. But also, if you scroll down, you see that we have these things, events, the same as in Blueprint. So here you can create an event, and you see when you expand the event, you see some event like on end play, on landed, and so on. We have the same here. So we have these events, and you see on clicked we can actually create a function. So let's press this plus button, and on clicked, now we can add a function. For example, we can add quit game, and it will just quit the game. And if we want to rename this, we can just rename it like, I think, come on, double click on it. It's very weird actually, come on. It doesn't let me rename for some reason. Anyway, so now you have your quit game, and if I play the game from here, I cannot click the button. Like I need to actually have my cursor to actually click. So if I press like the window button, so I enable my cursor and I click, it will quit the game. But that's like not very good, right? We actually need to be able to click this button, and on top of that, this appears on our screen immediately when we start the game. and this is not the behavior we want. So let me show you how we can link functionality that we create in our character blueprint into our UI. So let's go to the character blueprint and let's right click and type M key. So M for menu. Now when we press the M key, we want something to happen, right? And we want to actually have this widget appear. To create that, we actually first need to make, when we create the widget, we need its visibility to be set to invisible. So come here again, and remember this is our UI widget. Drag and set visibility. And don't worry about not knowing like the nodes, the names. The more you work and the more tutorials, well, the more my tutorials you watch, you will see different nodes and you have an idea how to use them, and you will remember it and use it, most likely. So let's set this hidden. If you're confused by overlapping, we can move it up, but yeah. And we have this widget visibility set to hidden. However, I need a reference, like for example, if I Control C and Control V this node, because we want this to be visible now, right? We want this to be visible, so we set this to visible, but the target, like, are you gonna do this, like, and imagine this was, we decide to put this like here. That's not very clean. To make it better, we can actually create a reference. And to create a reference, you just need to create a variable. So drag this and we can promote this to a variable. And when I click this, you will see in our variables we created something new, and we can name it UI underscore menu, the same as our widget name, and just connect it between these two nodes. And now what we can do actually is, if I move this, we can actually do this, like out and click to remove all the pins, and now like this, and we can do it for this one as well. So we can actually, use this reference now to connect this to connect to these nodes. And now here, instead of like getting here or whatever, we can go to variables and just drag and drop this this variable, and we need to get it. We don't need to set anything. So get this variable and now connect it to here. Sorry, connect it to here, and now we have it visible. So let's see if that will work. Let's play the game, and I don't see my button. Then let's press M. Now I see my button, but again I cannot click it. This is the annoying part. I cannot click it. And let's exit the game. To be able to actually click and have your cursor on the screen, we need to add a new functionality. So there are 3 nodes that we need to add. So let me just move things around and organize it a bit. And I copied these nodes already, so if I paste them, you will see the 3 nodes. So first, we need to pause the game. Well, this is a preference, but it's good to pause the game. Next, to show the cursor, we need this variable. We need to change this variable. So this variable is show mouse cursor, and you can get it like this: show mouse, or rather not mouse. Am I misspelling it? Mouse cursor. set show mouse cursor. So we need to actually context sensitive remove this, and now we can actually set it. And this in the target requires get player controller. So all you need to do is get player controller. So now we have that, and we need to obviously set the boolean. So we want to set it, we want to make it visible, so we are going to set it to positive here. And the next thing that needs to do is set input mode to UI only. So we don't want to be able to walk or whatever. Usually when your game is paused, this won't happen, but just in case, and you can get this simply by set input mode to UI only. And again, this requires get player controller. And you don't need to do anything else. Let me delete this extra node, and now we need to connect to set visibility. And if we compile, get player controller, this one actually, yeah, you see, I actually got the wrong player controller node, and it happens. Get player controller. I think we need to get it from here. Yeah, you need to have this index, player index here. So let's remove this, connect it back to here. And sometimes you will make these mistakes. It's nothing serious, just choose the right player controller. Also, if you hover onto these pins, you can see what this target needs. And now in our case, it says player controller object reference. So that's what we need to do. And if I hover over this one, it says exactly that. So if you just extend it and get player controller, just type the same thing that says here, you get the node. Sometimes it doesn't work. So for example, in the widget object, we actually needed to create like either create our widget from here and create a reference. So yeah, you have different cases. So let's compile now, and we don't have any errors. So now let's play the game, and let's have our big button appear. Press M. You see now the game is paused. I cannot move. You see there's no animation on my character, no animation on the trees, everything is paused. And now if I hover, you see the button, I have my cursor, and I can click it and it exits the game. So this is the very basic of UI, and you can get into it more if you want. So if I go to my UI widget, and now remember we were in the graph when we created our onClicked event in here, when we select our button, when we press this, for example, if I press to create another function here, it automatically goes to the graph instead of the designer. So the graph is where all your functionality will be created. And you have very similar to the blueprints, you have the graphs. If I go to blueprint, you have a graph, function, macro, variable, and event dispatcher. So here you have event dispatchers, variable, macro, function, and graphs. It's very similar, so you have nodes again. You can use absolutely the same node here, like if I do quit game, I mean, you can use this node here in the blueprint, in the character blueprint. So you can create functionality in here, and it's pretty fun to create UI functionality sometimes. And if you want to design your UI, for example, this is not the best design, but yeah, if you want to design it, you are going to go to the designer mode, switch to blueprint designer mode to see when you hover here, and you can note all kinds of things here. You can explore this, you can read on the documentation, or just hover over something and you see different explanations for different things, like for a canvas, for example. And yeah, this is the UI. Now you are probably a UI super master of the beginner, super beginner master. That's your title now. Be proud, that's a good title. And let's move to the next one. So now we cover the UI. If I go to the next one, we have game design and sound design. I'm not gonna go too much into the sound design, but I'm going to explain some ways how you can add sound to your level. However, let's start with game design. So that may be the most fun part for some people. So let's get into that. To start prototyping our levels, depending on what you want to do, you actually have some free prototyping elements. And if you create a project in Unreal 5, you get this level prototyping folder in your content. And if you open it and you see the meshes, here you have some very basic cubes and things that you can use to prototype your level. And this is this map, the default map that you get when you open your project is created mostly with these things, as you see. And yeah, if you want to create some level like that, you can use the prototyping tools here. Or if you go to starter content, you have some things here as well for architecture, and you can prototype and create things very fast. And that's that. However, if you want to create like an outdoor and a landscape and so on, you actually have to create a lot of stuff. For example, you will need obviously the landscape, which we are going to create from here. And you will need a landscape material, you will need vegetation, and you need to place the vegetation and everything in your landscape and so on. To make things easier for you when you're prototyping your level, there are some tools that you can actually use. If you go to your content, to your Epic Games launcher, and you go to Marketplace and you type here, it doesn't matter which one, in the search products you can type Landscape Pro, and if you search for Landscape Pro you will see that you have this Landscape Pro 2.0, and you have other stuff that are actually paid and so on, but you can actually get the Landscape Pro 2.0 for free. As you see, there's Landscape Pro 3, but you can use for prototyping just this landscape here. And when you get it and go to library, and you need to find it here in your library, so it's here for me, and you can add it to a project. For example, I want to add it to, where's my GIT, and I can just add this to my project, and it will start moving all these 3 GB of data into my project. Now when the converting, adding to your project is done, you will notice that in your content folder you actually have another folder, and it's called STF. So click that folder, and you're going to click another folder, why not, and here you have 3 more folders, and in these 3 more folders you can actually export the maps. And if you have seen one of my other tutorials, I actually use one of these maps, don't remember which one, but I use one of these maps for my default test around things. So you probably have seen it in my videos. And you can explore the maps and see how they're doing by loading them, but I don't want to do that because it will start compiling things. And I actually want to go to environment, and here you have some procedural foliage things and landscape. You even have water. So this thing actually comes with water material as well. And if we go to landscape again, we have some textures here, and we have this landscape material. So I'm actually going to use the landscape material, but let's explore a bit else. You have foliage here, so this pack actually comes with free foliage. So if I select this foliage and drag and drop it here and go there, and the preparing compiling shaders begins, but it's fast, I guess. It needs to compile shaders here to actually show my forge, and you can imagine one of these maps will have a lot of these forges loaded at the same time, so this may take a while if you load the map, so be careful. I mean, not careful, but have that in mind. Now that some of the shaders have compiled, almost all, you can actually see the foliage here. And this foliage comes with wind. As you see, it moves, and it's not that the wind that the default wind. And if we open this mesh and open the material, and then open the master material, which is here, which is actually another instance material, and then we can open the master material. It's a lot of instances. You see we have so we have these textures, and we have a material function. So a material function is just a material functionality compact into a function, and you can create these functions pretty easily. Like if you just right click here and go to materials, and here you have the material function, and if you create this function, you can create some nodes, and just like this one here, you see a lot of nodes, a lot of colors, and so on. And we have another thing here for the grass wind. If I click it, so we have a separate function for the grass wind, and this is all done just for organization purpose. It's you can do it all here, like in the main material. You can have all your functionality. You can have a big graph with a lot of nodes, but creating these functions, it's a lot easier. So now I have this function, right? All I need to do is just drag and drop it here. And you see this function here has inputs and outputs. Mine doesn't, and simply because in mine it has absolutely nothing connected here. So I'm not going to go in depth for the material function, but for now just know that you have you can explore the material that this person created, and you can explore, for example, how they made the wind, and you can just use it or learn from it for your own projects. So pretty useful thing to do. And now I have, let's say, no, I don't want to save anything. Let's delete this. And now we have actually what we need, which is, if we go to environment, landscape, we have, this is another one. So we need just the material, because we are going to create the landscape ourselves. And all these things, like the blocks, I actually want to delete them. I will be right back after I delete them. So now that we have everything deleted, let's create our landscape. The fun part starts now. So when we create our landscape, we will have some settings here. And again, just to create it, just select landscape here, and you will get this menu. And this is for how big our landscape is going to be. I'm not gonna make mine big because I actually wanna have like a small, very small level, a small part. I'm just gonna populate it with vegetation and make it nice. Let's see how that goes. If I create my landscape, it will start importing, and let's wait till it's over. And we have the landscape. Now that we have the landscape, we actually have different options here. And here you can, in this menu here, you can actually choose what to do. In manage, you can select the different parts of your landscape. You can delete them, you can add new parts. For example, let me go. Yeah, I need to have a faster camera, so let's get a bit faster. So now I actually want to add. You see, when I hover near the end of one of these patches, I can click and add, for example, this. See? Pretty nice. Let's add, for example, like that. And if you go to sculpting, you can actually sculpt your terrain. If I just press the left mouse button, you see I can create these hills and even mountains. And you can smooth this, or you can use the sculpt and hold shift, and yeah, this pretty much smooths the terrain. And you can actually use the smoothing for like making it uneven, as you see here. So now we have some even terrain, and we can actually flatten the terrain if we want. You see, I don't know if you can see it, but it flattens everything. And let's actually increase our brush. To increase our brush size, scroll down, and here we can make it bigger like that, and you can see like better how I can actually flatten my terrain. Again, you have different things. Let's increase the tool strength. This is how fast it will rise, like see how fast, how powerful the effect of what we're doing is. And now if we have this mountain here, you see we have some kind of a mountain. We can use erosion on it, and yeah, it creates some interesting effect. You can create some interesting mountain. Not bad. And yeah, you can use it like this. Also, we can use the hydro. It's erosion created from water. And you see this. You see these holes here. This probably what would happen if there was water. And we can use noise. See, pretty wild this one. Yeah, that's a bit too wild for me. We can always decrease the strength of our tool. Let's decrease it a lot. And now we have a bit less craziness. And remember, you can use a ramp as well. And the ramp is basically, you have one point of the ramp. Let's put it here, and you have the starting and the end point. And if I create the ramp right now, you see we can create this kind of bridges, which is pretty cool. And we can actually increase it, and you see you can create a big one. Let's create a ramp towards the edge, not the edge, but the peak. And you see now we have this ramp. Okay, so you got the picture here. You can use these tools and you can create some stuff. And the painting is actually for vegetation, but we don't have anything right now. And for example, let me enable another content browser and let's go to the project folder for our vegetation and go to environment, foliage, and what do we want? Do we have trees? Let's get this pine tree, and we have the static mesh. Let me wait. Sorry, the painting is actually not for. My bad. The painting is not for painting vegetation. It's actually for painting texture. If you want to paint vegetation, my bad. Sorry, you need to go to foliage. So here in foliage, in the foliage mode, again, you can actually drag and drop this pine, and it will ask you to create a foliage type asset. Just save it. So you can save the same folder as here. And it will create this thing, but I think we already had one. You see, we can use the one we already had in this folder. And if I delete this one because we don't need it, and now if I enable it and I paint, it will probably freeze because it needs to compile shaders. But you see, I can paint vegetation over my terrain. And we have different options for the painting. Again, we have the brush size and density. If, for example, I increase the density to 1, this will paint a lot of trees. And if I do like 0.1, this will paint a lot less. So you can create a bit of you have some like variety of what you can do. Also, this menu here is very annoying because it goes under my content browser, but what we can do is actually just remove these guys here. And if I push this one like now, we don't have the content browser, but we can see actually our what we need to do. And here in the mesh, if you select this one, you will see different things. And there is for scale, you can actually scale them. So you can create a scale variety. And if I do 5, for example, you have this huge variety in size because it starts from 0.8 to 5 and you have these trees. So you can very easily paint your level like this. See? You have different sizes, different it just looks very nice with the different variety. And this is with only one asset. If we go to content drawer, and again if we go to this folder and go to environment, landscape, again not here, my bad, oops, foliage, I need foliage. Well, I can add rocks, I guess, but yeah, let me show you that you can actually add rocks here as well. For example, if I add this rock, and yeah, it will ask me to create this asset for me. And if I disable the tree and enable the rock, and again in the rock I can actually create different scale. For example, 5. Again, from 1 to 5, and the paint density is pretty, oops, that's a lot actually. Well, it's preparing shaders, so let's wait for the shaders. With the rocks, however, if I like paint, you see this is ridiculous. So let's increase our brush size and delete these rocks by holding shift, remove them, and now we can actually place a single rock at a time. So let's do that. So you see, now we have one rock here, one rock there, and we have different rotations, we have different scales. It's the same rock but different rotation and scales, and this is the result. And actually you can paint two things at the same time. For example, if I enable the tree, now if I press if I paint, you see it will paint the tree and the rock, which doesn't look very nice because the tree is sitting on the rock. But for example, if we don't do a single but do a paint and decrease the density to 0.01 and the size to this, now we have yeah, with the rocks it's a bit hard, to be honest, with these rocks, but if we decrease the size to 1 and actually 0.1, now you see when we paint the tree, we have some rocks around the tree, and we can paint our level like that as well. And if you probably can imagine that if you have different variety of trees and different rocks, you can, like, you don't need that much of variety. You need a few trees, a few rocks, and you pretty much have a level painted. And yeah, you see now, but what we are missing here is the material and what we actually need. So let's exit this foliage mode. Now that we know how to paint foliage, we can just go to environment, landscape, and have a landscape material. You can use this material instance actually. So let's select our landscape, and here, as you see, we have this material. So in content drawer, let's dock it again and expand it a little bit. Now let's see what happens if I just drag and drop this material here, if it lets me. So drop this material here, and now if I select again the landscape and go to landscape mode, again, actually I'm gonna remove the content browser again, we have some interesting stuff happening here. For every layer that we have, we actually need to have this thing called layer info. For this project, we have them created. I mean, the person that created this pack actually created the info as well. So all you need to do is go to landscape in the landscape mode and select here where it says none, and just use the layer info, and you need to do that for all of this, you see. And now you will notice that when you do the layer info, some things will change automatically. This is the actual magic that this material does. And let me just decrease the brush size for now. Everything is small because it's preparing shaders, but yeah, I'm going to select all the layer info for all of them, and I will get back to you, so wait for me. And I'm back. I know I was pretty fast, it took me only 1 second to do this. You may be a bit slower, but I mean, with experience you will get this fast as me to be able to do this for 1 second. It was not editing at all, I didn't edit anything, nothing. And now you see we have some different things here. When the terrain is flat, we have this material, and when the terrain has these cliffs and these slopes, we have a different material. So what this material is, I mean, this landscape material is very useful and very nice. And now you can actually populate everything with grass, for example. If I go to foliage, and let's disable these things, go to content browser, landscape, go to foliage, and we can use grass. And here we have different grasses, and we can just use the different grasses here. We can just do this. Yeah, save, whatever. And now it will ask you 1,000 times to save. Just spam, click spam, 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 and I think they will be by default enabled. But when I paint, you cannot see anything, or rather you can, but they're pretty small. And on top of that, the density is pretty low, so let's do it like this. And now you can actually see some grass. Pretty nice, right? So yeah, you can use the assets from here. You can paint the grass and so on. You can use all the assets that this pack has. However, there is another way to do it. And if you remember, I showed you earlier that you can actually go to Quixel Bridge. And here you can actually get some assets. So the magic comes when you get some nice assets from the Quixel Bridge. Come on. And you can get some plants here and actually add them to your level. Also, you can add assets as well. You see? Pretty cool. You can add rocks, you can add those kind of scanned assets into your project and create a level with it. You can use the landscape material, or you can actually go to the default map of this pack here. If you go to the map, you can open one of these maps. I don't remember which one was it, maybe this one, I think. And you can, or the test map, I'm not sure. You can actually explore what can be done with this pack and use it. But this is how you can easily create some environment pretty fast, to be honest. With Quixel, the only thing that is decreasing your time is preparing shaders, and when you do the Quixel, like when you get some assets from Quixel, you have to bake the shade, not bake, but prepare or build or like whatever on the shaders. So you can actually, that's your waiting time, that's all it is. And then you have to just make your design. But let's say you have some vegetation and so on, and you actually want to place some assets, I mean some hero assets into your level. Let me show you. Let's exit the forge mode, go to content drawer, again dock it. I need it most of the time. So in level prototyping, if you go to mesh, as I said, and you press place this mesh here in the world, and for example, let's say we want this as well. You can obviously rotate them and play around, but right now it doesn't have snapping, so Ctrl Z, enable the snapping, and we can rotate it on 90 degrees, like 10 degrees increment. But let's say I want to mirror this asset. So yeah, sure, with these assets I can probably duplicate it and rotate it and place it in place like that. Also, you can duplicate by holding Alt and just move the asset like this. Because it's snapping, oops, yeah, my camera is too fast, so let's decrease my camera a bit. So yeah, you can duplicate and rotate it, but what if I want a faster way? I can just duplicate this and go to transform, and in my case I think I'm going to mirror Y, because you see this is the axis I want to mirror and this is the Y. The red one is the X axis, so again I can mirror and create the shape. It's pretty fun, right? If I want to, for example, let's select all these shapes and I want to replace this shape with something else, for example this static cylinder. So I can right click on all these assets and I can replace it with anything like this cylinder. And now we have this cylinder over and over again because there were 4 assets. So we have 4 cylinders. But for example, if I select this one, select the mesh I want to replace it with in the content browser, and right click, replace this actor with the ramp. Now we have a ramp. Also I can place just actors on top, or rather you see I can select this actor and place actor on it, like I can place a ramp and it will place it on this actor. That's pretty cool because, for example, I can select this one and place another cylinder. Come on, why didn't it work? Place cylinder, you see, and I can stack them. Now yeah, this didn't work, but I need to select this one and place it like that. It's a bit not actually aligned, which is weird, but doesn't matter. So yeah, this is how you can place, rotate actors. Again, if you go to transform and mirror it like Z, you can mirror it any way you want. You can hide it, you can edit it, like copy, duplicate from this menu as well. So now that you can place actors, play around with it, and get some cool actors from Quixel Bridge, you can actually create your level and populate your level and create some interesting things with your level. I have videos that show you how to get a better sky than this, and again, if you use the level that comes with this pack, you can actually start off with pretty nice level and go from there. And this will be for the designing part of your level. If you actually want to know more about game design and gameplay design, for this was not really a gameplay design, just how to design your level, more like level design. But for game design, I will create later, I mean in the future, a tutorial about game design and more get more into it. But next we need to go to sound. So let's go into that. So next on our list is sound, and I'm going to show you how to add some sound into your game. So let's get started. First, to add sound to your game, you actually need to have some sound, surprise. And to get sound for your game, you can again get it in your Epic Games launcher. Can you believe that? There's actually 3 sound packs. And I have this, it's called Sound Phenomenon Fantasy, and you can find it by going to Marketplace, and here you can type sound. Let's see what happens, and a lot of stuff pop out, but Pheno, and if you type Phenomenon Fantasy, it will get you will get this one. And as you see, it's a free one, and now in your library you can actually add it to your project, any project you want. I already have this added to my project, so let's explore that. So when you add it to your project, you have it as a fantasy orchestra, and if you go into this, you notice that you have audio and cues. So now open the cues folder, because this is the folder that we need to use in our level. And for example, if you import a audio file into the engine, you are going to have these files, and to create a cue from this file, all you need to do is select the file and just right click, and now you see there's this thing called create cue. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but I'm calling it cue. So yeah, create one, and when you open the cue, you will see that you have this UI, user interface, and this is the song or the audio itself, and this is the output. Now we use cues for various reasons. For example, if I want to actually play two songs, all I need to do is just drag and drop this one here, and now I have two, and I need to actually combine them. So to combine them, all we need to do is just right click, and we have a few different options here. For example, if we just want to have like a random we have like two inputs, and every time it will play randomly one of these two inputs. So now if I save and play, you will hear most likely, or maybe, I'm not sure if you can hear. Second. Okay, now you can hear, and if I play again, you see now this one is playing. Every time I play it will pick randomly, and because we have only two, it's pretty much one and the other. So we have the weights here, and for example we can make this one to have a chance of 0.1, so it still plays it one after the other. But we can also add other inputs, and you can add as many as you want, and you just have this audio of random. You see, it's kinda random now that we have three of them, and this is one way to do it. For example, you have other options as well, and here you can actually make this looping, so when it finishes it will loop. You have different functionality here, so you can just export this, but I don't need this cue file, so I'm going to delete it. The creator of this pack actually already created cues for us, and this is the one I'm gonna use. And all you need to do to actually have it in your level is just drag and drop it. And now if you actually try to play the game, let me just play the game, you see it will activate the moment you play the game. The only thing is, for example, if I go somewhere else, like here, and I play the game again, you probably guess, but it will still play. And this works, for example, if you have a level of your menu level or whatever, you want the music to play immediately, but for a lot of cases you actually want a aerial effect. So if you select the actor of your sound, in this case it's called Magical Fantasy. What a magical name. So overall, all you need to do is if you scroll down, all these options, don't get too scared of them. It's nothing too complicated. You have the volume, the pitch, and you can actually do other stuff in this, but the thing we actually need is this attenuation. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but let's roll with that. And here we can just overwrite, and you can either actually create your own file, and to create an attenuation setting file, all you need to do is go in the folder you want it and go to sounds and sound attenuation. And here is, you notice that when I overwrite this, we have some settings appeared. The same settings are in this file. It is better to have a file, for example, if you have a lot of these actors in different levels, so you just can like replace the file. And if I disable this and just add this file here, all the settings from this file will be applied to this actor, and you can do this like in all your different levels with different actors that want these settings. But for my case, I don't really care. So right now I can just use the settings in the editor. And for example, you see this sphere, like you have an outer sphere and inner sphere, and it's here, inner radius and file off. So in the inner radius you hear the song 100% volume, and the more you go to the outer edge of the sphere, the less you hear the song. For example, let me increase this and let me spawn outside the sphere. So let's play the game, and now you see, or rather you are gonna hear, or rather you're not gonna hear anything. And if I just move closer to my goal, you start hearing slowly like the song. And the more I go to the center, the higher the volume it is. I'm not really sure where exactly was the center, but I think it was around here, and now you hear it at maximum volume, and you hear like I'm leaving the center and going back. It's pretty nice. And this is a way for you to add a audio to your level without actually much hurdles. It's very easy. You just create a cue and put it to your level and adjust your settings. Override attenuation, and yeah, it's pretty cool. You have some interesting effects in everything, and you can actually make some cool sounds. You can even like have reverb, and that's really cool, to be honest. But yeah, this is how you can add sound to your levels, and it's pretty easy. You can also do like something, let me scroll down. So now we are nearing the end, and the last phase is actually the tech phase, or the technical part. And to get some technical, the technical part is consisted, of course, from blueprints or programming. Also, you have some general editor knowledge, like knowledge about a lot of stuff in the Unreal, how to use the engine itself. But this will come with time. You'll learn tricks and so on. To get you started, actually, let's get with the blueprints. I actually have a lot of tutorials about blueprints, and I have one that actually explains you pretty like very thoroughly about some things about blueprints, so you can go check them out, but here I'm going to show you the very basics of blueprints and just the interface and get familiar with it, and you can go watch my tutorials or someone else's for any specific thing you want to create. So let's get into blueprints. First, let's start with the question of what are blueprints actually. Well, you see, when you create a game, you need some logic how all the world works, right? And you have two options with Unreal. One is blueprints and another is coding, like traditional coding. But if you're like me and you don't want to stare at text 24/7 and get your eyes killed and get blind in 2 or 3 years, I prefer blueprints. It's a lot more visual, and of course the downside is that you're a bit restricted. So it's actually good to have some coding knowledge as well. Even though I don't like coding, I do have some coding knowledge, and to be honest, you should too, if you want to have overall knowledge of everything. So it's good. But blueprints, let's get to blueprints. Blueprints are just code disguised in nodes, and let me show you. If you go to your folder of choosing and right click, you can create a blueprint class. But if you hover on it, you will see a description. So blueprints are special assets that provide an intuitive node-based interface that can be used to create new types of factors and script level events, giving designers and gameplay programmers the tools to quickly create and iterate gameplay from within Unreal Editor without ever needing to write a line of code. So this is the description. So if I click on blueprint class, you will see we have a few actors, like not actors, sorry, a few classes here, and the most basic one and the one on top, and probably the one you will use the most, is just the actor class. And you have a lot of things that are just actor classes, but also you have a description here, and you can read all the descriptions. But actor classes is the best way to describe it is you can actually create a prefab. If you worked with Unity, I think, I haven't been in Unity in so long, but I think it was called prefab there. So this is basically a way to create a prefab with logic behind it. And if I just create an actor and name it BP, so the naming convention for blueprints is BP for blueprints, and underscore, let's what's a creative name? Let's type creative name. That's not much of a creative name, if I may, but I did not type creative name, I typed creative name, so that is pretty creative of me. Now, if we open the blueprint, if it decides to open, you'll see that we have this user interface here, and we have seen blueprints throughout this course, but yeah, let me get let's get familiar. Again, we have the menu here, pretty standard menu. Here is the name, of course, of our blueprint, and we have compile, save, browse. We have a bit of different categories, or rather menus, or I don't know how to call this. Class settings, like and class defaults. These things you get familiar with them, but the most important one is compile for now. And compiling is basically when you create your logic, you need to compile that logic for it to work. So this is all you need to know, and it says good to go. So yeah, Once you compile, it's good to go, unless you have 1,000 errors. Now, here in components, as you see, if I select this, we have the default scene root. In components, we actually cannot almost everything. As you see, this is the same menu as here. So you can add, you can think of this as a local viewport or local screen, local game even, no, local level, but you can place different objects. For example, I can place a cube here, and you see now it wants me to compile. It says dirty needs to be compiled. So if you add anything, even if it's just an object, you need to compile this. And now if I just place this into the world, I have a cube. So one of the powers of this basic actor class is that you can actually have models here, and let me just copy this cube everywhere, like make a bunch of copies, and you see we have just the cube, right? However, if I modify this blueprint and add a sphere like this and compile, you will see that every object, every actor in our scene was updated. So here you can actually, for example, if you create a modular, oh my god, modular building, you can actually create different buildings with different actors, like different blueprint actors, and you can modify anything on these buildings, and it will update on all the buildings in your scene. It's very powerful. This is the most basic thing for the actor class, and of course you can add absolutely everything. You can even add a light here. Let me, come on, go up, and yeah, you can add literally everything. You see, and now we will have this updated everywhere. You see the blue lighting, but below this component menu, you see the graphs. I already mentioned the graphs before, but you have this event graph here is actually, if I double click it, you see it goes here. This is our viewport. If I double click the event graph, we go to the graph. We can scroll through all the different tabs here, and we can add new ones. For example, if I add a function, and a function, I think I already explained a function, but a function is something that you can put some functionality in it and use it a lot easier. It's very easy to use function. So this is the event graph, and the event graph is very self-explanatory. This is where you have all your events, and event is basically an event. For example, event tick. This is so event tick is called every single tick, and that's not every single second. I think it's every single moment or something like that. Every frame, yeah, every frame. So it is not a second but a frame. So if I put a functionality here, it will be called every single frame, not even second. And this one here is event actor begin overlap. This will be called every time something overlaps our actor. So for example, if I want to, let's say, quit game, it's the easiest thing to test. Now if I overlap the actor, let's see, Yeah, but I actually cannot overlap it because of the collision. But you can actually add events, and this is event begin play. But let me show you how you can add event. Right click here, and here you have different events, right? And let's try on event hit to see if that works. Compile, and now play the game. Come on, play the game. And now when I touch this object, the game should quit. And it quit. So this is a way to actually add some events, right? It didn't work with begin overlap because begin overlap would work only if we don't have a collision on our actors. And because we have a collision, we will stop before we actually overlap with the actor. So you see it even says it for events when objects have a blocking collision, for example a player hitting a wall, see hit event. So that's why we used hit event here. And the begin play is very self-explanatory. This is how you can create some basic functionality. So this is the event graph, and then I explained functions. Macros are like functions, kinda, but they are like you have inputs here, and I'm not going to go too much into macros, but for now know that you can create macros which will make your life a bit easier. They are like functions, but some things, like for example you cannot use some nodes with them, so be careful. And variables are variables. I already explained variables, I think. If I, like other actor, if I just promote a variable, you can create a variable this way. And yeah, these are the things you have here. But we also have another one, which is called construction script. And you can get it from here. If you go to the viewport, you see the actors here, right? And we have some functionality. And for example, if we want to create a functionality that we want to see here in this viewport, we actually need to use the construction script, because the event graph is called only when we play the game. However, if we don't play the game, for example, if we want to see a functionality here before we play the game, we are going to use construction script, because construction script is called in the editor. If the editor is opened, this is when construction script is called, while the event graph is called when we actually play the game here. And that's why you want to create some, you can prototype some stuff in the construction script, and it's very useful for some things. In my series about the jump cubes, I start with construction script, and I'm showing how to create procedural things with basic functionalities, basic nodes in Unreal.